Welcome back to Leadership Roundtable. Very excited about my panel today and our subject. We are going to be jumping knee deep into humility as a leader and how to accept your role and the ownership that comes with that. I have some experts with me, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with Oakland McCulloch.
Yeah, well, thanks, John. Excited to be on this panel. A lot of great people here. I just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Northern Illinois, a small little farm town, but I did 23 years in the Army, retired a lieutenant colonel, and then started off infantry, ended up armor officer, so a combat arms officer. Then I ran a food bank for a couple years in Mobile, Alabama, and then last 12 years, I've been a recruiter for Army ROTC, so a government service officer. Published my first book in February 2021. And since then, been out on the speaking circuit, talking to as many people as I can about leadership and success.
Thank you, Oak. I appreciate that. And Oak's book is on the screen. You can see it. The link to his book is in the comments section, so you can go out and buy it off of Amazon. Great book. You can also listen to the book if you want to hear Oak's voice for a couple hours. Easy listen, great lessons. I've been through it myself a couple times, and we actually have a show about it. And that link will appear at the end of this video. Thank you. Appreciate you being here today. Kevin, thank you for being here as well.
Yes, thanks, John. Kevin Phillips. I have a PhD in organizational leadership. I'm currently an adjunct professor at the University of Tampa, and I've written 3 books. Most recently, published a book on change and the value of change and how to implement it in your organization successfully.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Those books as well appearing on your screen, and the link is below to go to Amazon and buy Kevin's books as well. And Kevin, I know I've mentioned it in other shows that you've been on, but anxiously looking forward to your 4th book. Very excited about that.
Very excited. Thanks, John.
All right. So geographically, we're going to move from Florida in the Sunshine State, and we're going to head back up north to New York City. Mike, go ahead.
Mike Dinitto. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist. I currently oversee a program that serves adults with severe mental illness in the boroughs of Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And bringing it back home to Michigan, I know you see a lot of K-State stuff in the background, but currently in the Detroit Metro. Guys, I want to dive right in because I'm really excited to hear some of these stories. So the premise behind this and what we hope to be able to offer is some tips and advice on how to avoid some of the pitfalls of assuming a new leadership role, knowing that not every organization has the resources to provide training and development for their team. I've been a firm believer for many years that it's our responsibility to educate ourselves. It doesn't matter what you do, what your profession is, never stop learning. So I want to kick this off with Oakland, and starting with the worst assumption of leadership you have ever seen. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and I've seen some in my time, but I think you got to start with the premise that it's not about you. If you think it's about you, put your ego aside. It's about the organization and the people that you have the privilege to lead and you're taking over. And I think some people forget that. I know some people forget that. So, the worst people I've seen take over are the ones who come in and Kevin probably addresses this as well, and they start changing things day one. How can you change things on day one if you don't even know what the organization's about, what they do, why they do it, how they do it? So, that's the worst that I've ever seen is day one. I've been involved in very good organizations, and somebody will come in on day one, start changing things, and they'll change things that make us good because they don't know. They just don't have any idea what it is that that organization does and what makes it good or bad. So I think you gotta get out and get to know people a little bit before you and the organization before you start changing things.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Oak, and I'm curious because I know that you've got experience leading civilian and military organizations. Um, ha, have you ever? Because I've seen that as well. In fact, a military change of command ceremony literally turned into the gentleman taking over the company. As soon as it was over, he turned and he read his doctrine to the company and said, "This is how things are going to be." And it was a disaster because we, of course, saluted and said, "Yes, sir," and we marched in that direction. Have you seen some of the same things happen in the civilian industry as well?
Yeah, I think I have. Oh, I know I have. I think that the problem with it is that we all have an ego. Anybody who tells you they don't have an ego is lying to you. Okay.
Mhm.
And we want people to have an ego because that's what drives people to be successful, is what drives them to be the best at whatever they do. But a good leader needs to know when to put their ego aside. And unfortunately, I see people not doing that. But I think I have seen it done in the civilian world. Just I've seen it done, as a government service officer, I saw it done a couple times. That same thing where people walk in and start changing things from day one without even knowing anything about the organization.
Yeah. So, yeah, Kevin, we'll go to you next, and we'll stick with the same question for now. Then I'll change it up after Mike answers.
Sure. I think worst assumption for me that I've experienced both personally and have had discussions about have involved leaders thinking that they need to have all the answers, that they are the king or queen and they have the wisdom that extends beyond their subordinates. Though they need to have a general understanding of what their responsibilities are, they need to know where other people's strengths and abilities really stand. And a lot of leaders, going back to what Oakland said, have too much of an ego to allow others to make that decision. And that's a huge problem because rather than deferring to someone who has that wisdom, they feel, all right, I'm in charge. I need to be the one pushing the button. So I think that's a huge assumption going down the wrong path.
Kevin, I agree with you, and I have been in that spot before where I have been the leader coming in, and what is interesting is I think it takes a strong leader, and it takes a self-aware leader to be able to respond because I believe, in my experiences, there were also pressures of the team specifically, and I'll share this example without mentioning names, but I took over a team, and there were members on that team who had applied for the job and were declined for the job. And day one came heavy-handed at me of, how are you going to fix this? And, I hope I handled it well. Only time, I guess, told, where, from my perspective, I was as humble as I could be. I point blank said, if that's a problem, we'll talk about it and we'll come up with the best solution as a team and move forward. And of course, I did not know at the time that this person had interviewed and got declined. And so luckily for me, I respected the person. I heard the person. And then I asked the person later, would you ever consider? And of course, that's where the awkward moment was. I did actually. And you got the job. And I was like, oh, okay. But we'll talk more about that when we get to the best assumption of a new leadership role. Mike, same question, right back at you.
All right. So the rough thing about going last. So I agree with everything. And I had an idea, but I forgot about it. No, no, everything you guys said is exactly on point. I mean, it is the kind of go with Kevin. It is about a self-esteem issue. Can you humble yourself, right? To kind of add to what Oak had said, I've seen, and that's the bit that was my example of a leader coming in and making instantaneous change, or almost instantaneous change, right? Like you're coming into a large organization and within 3 months you're making huge changes. I don't think you can understand the organization, 3,000 plus staff, over 175 programs well enough to start making large changes. But there's also that pressure from the board because usually when a new CEO comes in, you were picked because there's a specific need. And the board, or maybe not a board because maybe it's not a not-for-profit, but there's some level of pressure for you to implement that change. Now, never having been in that level of a high, or that high of a level place, I can't talk about if there is the ability to push back. Or maybe there was pushback, and that's how you got the 3 months versus 2 weeks to implement the change. But understanding that stuff is there. The big thing around those types of changes, because you do want to know every aspect of it. I mean, I've taken over, when I took over a new area of the program a few years back, I gave it 4 months. I mean, this was a program I knew. It was already the same program, just adding another area to my program, to understand what's their current workflows, what's their current processes, what's their exact needs, and to try to understand the causes of those needs. Like what's implementing or what's causing those deficits, for lack of better terms, or those weak areas. And then trying to bring it back into a uniform way of doing things across all my areas. So I took some aspects from that they were doing well, brought it to the other, and vice versa. But also doing that in a way as a leader that the place that's getting the most changes is still comfortable with it, and they understand that level of transparency. And also what I learned as a leader is I don't make the best decisions, and being humble enough to say, you know what, that decision was wrong. I take ownership of it. We shouldn't have done it. Let's fix it. Right? Not, well, you didn't implement the policy correctly. It's you. And that level of humbleness, as well as Kevin has said, that level of humbleness to say, I don't know. Yeah. Like John, the example you gave, I don't know what the answer is, but we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
And taking that sort of feedback.
Well, I think that's the key, Mike, is that, you've got to use the talent, skills, knowledge, and abilities that you have in your organization, because you don't have all the answers. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you've been doing whatever you're doing. You don't have all the answers. And so
that's not what John tells me. He says he has all the answers.
That's right. It's amazing how much smarter our parents get as we get older. But
whoa. Time out. I am not his father.
No, I know, but still.
You just say you're old.
Yeah. Not as old as me, but he's old. Yeah.
I thought you were saying he was your father. I was going to agree with you.
Yeah. But it really, you got to use those people. And if you got to make a change, then implement that, get the people who are going to implement that change in a room and say, okay, we got a problem. Give me some ideas. And you'll be surprised what happens. First of all, you start building trust because you're asking people their opinion. And second of all, they're the ones who do it every day. They're the ones who are doing the job that you got to fix. They probably got some good ideas. They probably had some ideas how to fix it, and nobody would listen to them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Oak, on that. And I think that transitions us into the best assumption of a leadership role is and this is just my humble opinion, I think it really boils down to something very simple. A leader who's willing to listen before he speaks or she speaks is always going to be the better leader, the stronger leader, the leader that has the longevity to lead the team where they need to go. Sometimes you do need a strong leader who will step in and fix a crisis. But this isn't about crisis management. This is about everyday leadership. And so I want to kind of transition that into the conversation of let's talk about the best assumption of leadership that you've ever seen, whether it was you were the leader or you saw someone else do it. This is the part of the show where I would love if you have the ability to plug someone by name who's a phenomenal leader. I would love to give them a shout out during the show. And just so everyone's aware, I will tag them when I post the video in places where I can. So, Oak, keeping with from my perspective, my counterclockwise rotation. And I will also tell the audience the reason I'm making Mike go last is this was actually his question, his topic. So I'm going to make him dig deep into the well of knowledge.
Well, he's probably smarter than all of us anyway, so so he can handle it.
Did you notice, John? He said, I'm not his parent.
That's right. I think the best example, and I've had a couple who have done this, and I started doing it this way as well, is the best assumptions are the ones where the person takes over and they get out from behind their desk and they start walking around where their people are working and asking questions. Why do you do it that way? Is there a better way? Is there something else I can do to help you do that in a better way? And here's why it's important that you get out from behind your desk and go where they're working. Because if you call somebody into your office and you ask them that question, you are going to get an entirely different answer in your office than you will where they're working. Because when you call them to your office, it's like they're coming to the principal's office. Mm-hmm. They're just not as at ease in your office answering that question. And then not only ask them those questions, but get to know people. I'm a huge believer that as a leader, you got to get to know the people that you're leading, that you have the privilege to lead. And it is a privilege to lead people. And personal things about, I'm one of the best leaders that I ever worked for. One of the things he would do is he'd start out asking people, what's your spouse's name? What's your kid's name? What sports do their kids play? What's your hobbies? What do you like? What you don't like? So just get to know not only the organization, but the people in the organization. And then you can start making some good decisions. Until you know that, you can't make good decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that, Oak. Certainly some good foundations. And I had an executive that I worked for in one of my first real jobs when I got out of the Army. And it was, technology was just becoming a thing, and he would do that. I would be in the room with him while he was calling his other locations, and I would see him taking feverish notes after he would ask a question. And I asked him one day, I said, "What are you doing? Like you seem to be like you're talking about their personal life, but you're taking notes." And he said, "I am, because the next time I talk to them, I have an expectation that I remember his wife's name, his kids' names, how old his kids are, what his wife does for a living." And that was a strange aha moment for me to say, because I entered this job from a military perspective of policy, procedure, execute. And so that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Kevin, we'll transition to you next. Same question. Best assumption of leadership you've ever seen or been a part of?
Yes. So kind of going back to self-awareness. And the best example I could really think of was a dear friend, Adam, when I was working at CVS. And he was actually brought in and able to create his own team. And so he worked in the learning services department, and it was really kind of a ground up type team. And so he was a very self-aware person. And so he knew his skills, he knew his strengths, he knew his weaknesses. And so he knew he needed to have a creative, an excellent presenter, people that could develop kind of the training and the teaching lessons, IT, and then even admin. And so he knew who to pluck and what skills were needed. And he was able to bring all of the diverse skills together. And it ended up being probably the most effective team in our community, in our small pharmacy. And it was really just grounded in his awareness of where he was missing the mark and where he was talented. And that really leveraged everyone's abilities effectively.
The concept that you talk about, I believe they fleshed that out in the StrengthsFinder, and which was an amazing book, but also program. And from a leadership perspective, it's a twist because we're trained to identify what we're not good at and try to get better at that. And StrengthsFinder says, that's great, but how about we focus on what you're good at, and then you bring that skill to the table. That to me was a groundbreaking change, because I had been trained so hard my whole life to say, okay, if I'm not good at that, I'm going to go do it every day until I get good at it. And working for a leadership team that said, do that on your own time, John. You're really good at this. Let's go focus on that and then teach other people how to be really good at that. It sounds like that's something that Adam brought to the table.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. All right. All right, Mike. Pressure's on you.
I mean, to kind of go, because yet again, really not much to add at this point. But to go off of experiences, I mean, there's a few that pop into my mind, like where you're talking about when I first got out of the military, right? I was in college. I got one of those, nice little cushy GI Bill, college rep jobs while I was in school. The president of the college could walk through the area, and every time it was, "Hey, how are you doing, Mike?" I had never had a conversation with the guy. Not like I was wearing a name tag, but at some point he learned my name, and every time he would see me, he would say, "How are you doing, Mike? How's everything going, Mike?" And not like that. I mean, he would say my name once, but he would give me some sort of a greeting with my name, and it just always struck me that I'm like, how does this dude? And he could do it to anybody that worked at the school.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Like I was just like, I was always amazed. I was like, I can't remember, some of my friends' names at times. Like I'm like, and this dude can remember how many hundreds of people's names. But like I remember the impact that had. That he remembered my name, and I mean, there was a little bit of fear of like, how do you know my name? Am I doing something wrong? I'm like, but that's my self-doubt. So yeah, that and I didn't even think about it until we were just talking about that little level of detail. And then to kind of go off of like the strengths building, like I talked about, I was attached to the teams when I was in the Army, and one of the things that they would do is we would cross train. So we all had our specialty on the team, and we would cross train each other for the purpose of, if your medic goes down, somebody's got to be a medic. And it's better to have somebody who's got a little bit of knowledge versus somebody who has no knowledge. But still, the medic was the one doing the training. The medic was the one helping everybody grow. For me, I was teaching civil affairs and teaching how to do my job. But we always had that little portion of time every week where we would cross train with each other. And that was something that I actually took into the civilian world because when I became a supervisor, my team had a diverse background. So like some people came from housing to the team. Some people came from the hospitals to the team. So whenever we would have an issue and we would bring it to a group discussion, I would not be the leader. I would not be the expert. It'd be, "Oh, we're having a problem with this hospital." I'd be like, Ade, like, what's your thought? You came from this setting. Or it's a housing issue. Carlos, what was your thought? You came from this setting. Or what do you know? And bringing that in and just the ability, how that developed the team, right? Like now each person felt valued within the team because they're the ones giving the advice. And as a leader, I felt it was always a good thing, the less talking I had to do. Because I always wanted to develop that team building that I remembered from the military, as well as that peer support. I don't want you to have to come running to me every time. My theory is I don't hire you if I don't think I can trust you. So I want to trust you that you're going to find the answer, even if you can't get a hold of me, because I'm not always going to be available. I can't be the 1 point person, and we work in a team. So I guess that's the two big things where I've seen leadership go well, and kind of off of what you guys had said.
Yeah, Mike, I think that goes back to the first point that Oakland shared was, what as a new leader, when you come in, if you're the person spouting off, if you're the person telling everybody how it's going to be and not listening, then I think that those are the foundation blocks that are going to crumble the fastest. And so I agree with your point of, let them talk. Now, you, as a new leader, you have to have that moment where you tell them who you are. They want to hear about you. They want to get to know you. You've got to have that moment. But the point that was made by both Oak and Kevin that you validated was you also, people love talking about themselves. You've got to let them talk. not just about who they are, who their family is, but what do they do here? What value do they bring? What do they think they bring versus what do you think they should bring? I think all those are valid. And a few minutes ago, I wrote some notes, and I apologize. I should have written down who said it. So it was Oak or Kevin. You said getting called to the principal's office. To me, that culture is a toxic culture. If and there's a meme, I'll pop it up on the screen here. If getting called to your boss's office is a sign, or if there's any kind of aura or atmosphere that, oh, they're in the boss's office, something might be wrong. Bosses of the world, I'll tell you right now, if that is alive and well in your organization, you are not surviving and thriving. Your people are afraid of you. You have to have the aura that you'll call them in and ask them about their family, that you'll call them in and ask them how they're doing. Your office can't be the place that people get called into when something's wrong. And, it's got to be a safe place where your people will never come to you. Mike said this months ago that, a good leader knows that they're doing their job right because your people are not afraid to tell you when you've screwed up, and that, so Mike, I think that kind of couples along with, the thing you said a minute ago, am I doing something wrong? The best leader that I've ever worked for had some method of remembering everybody's name. And I don't know how he did it. He had thousands of employees. Now, some people who know him will say, well, it's because he made everybody wear a name tag. If you were customer facing, you did have to wear a name tag so the customer knew who you were and what your title was. However, this guy had easily 500 to 750 warehouse workers who could not, for safety reasons, wear a name tag, and he knew all of their names. And I had been at social events with him. He also knew their spouses' names. So I do not have that skill. In fact, throughout the course of this show, I have forgotten your names. Thank God they're on the screen. That's how quickly I forget things.
Yeah.
That's why I write things down as you guys are talking. So I admire that. To me, that is, if you are the leader who can do those mind tasks and remember things, I applaud you wholeheartedly. And I will apologize in advance to the three of you and to anybody watching. I've switched to AirPods instead of the microphone and speakers. So if you can hear the conversation that's happening behind me, I apologize for that. But that's two teenage girls excitedly telling each other about what they did yesterday.
Actually, it's quiet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
John, I think what Kevin hit was exactly right. I mean, a good leader uses the people's strengths and skills and knowledge on their team. And Mike said the same thing. You're not the expert in every single aspect of your business or your organization. But I think, for both, and I think we all kind of agreed but the only way you know that is if you get to know the people. Mm-hmm. If you don't know the people that's working for you, then you don't know what their strengths are. You don't know what they're good at, just as importantly, what they're not good at or what they don't like to do. And I see that all the time. I see leaders who don't know their people, who will assign a project to somebody, and it wasn't the right person to assign it to because they're not good at that, or they don't like that aspect of the job. The person sitting right next to them loves that, but because they didn't know the people, they assigned it to the wrong person.
Yeah. I think also we're becoming so specialized in the work environment where it used to be a generalist could do everything and you could, I'll figure it out. I'll tinker with it and I'll get to the solution. Now we are so very specialized with everything that we do that it's imperative to know what are the extraordinary skill sets that you possess versus your counterparts. Because if you don't know what your subordinates do specifically, you're going to miss out on their talent.
Yeah.
I mean, to kind of go with that is getting to know them. Is there the opportunity, right? So the way, when I took over the team, it was already an established team. The way I learned it is we would have case presentations every team meeting. And I would ask, what do you guys think? Before I gave my opinion. And even with, like I said, bringing up subject matter experts and having them give it, I still had some say as the leader of, like, let's look at a timeline, or maybe, let's tweak it and kind of do it this way. But they gave the first, and allowing the team to speak first and be heard. You're going to learn their thought process, how they work. Because I mean, somebody might be good at, job X, but they're not good at meeting timelines. So I might want them, but put another person primary so that we can make sure that the timeline's there. And doing that sort of thing, but having those opportunities to learn your staff and learn what they are. I mean, I probably learned more in a team meeting than hey, can you come in my office and how's your day? How's this going? And it's more of the form or how my job was at the point, because my staff were out in the field. Right? It's not like we're an office-based staff where I could say, oh, I got a couple of minutes. Let me go see who's out there and walk the bullpen. Because 9 times out of 10, there was nobody in the bullpen. Right. So the opportunity wasn't there. It was more of when we were all together as a team, we could have that conversation. And it actually turned out to be quite a nice thing, because now it wasn't just me. The whole team was learning about each other, and the whole team was asking each other, like, oh, how'd your daughter do on X, Y, and Z? I remember that was a big thing, is one of the staff's daughters was it cheerleading or the flag banner? What, she was in something, but she had competition. So the whole team was like rallying behind her. Yeah, like that sort of thing. So it developed that team and that unity. But it's about, creating those opportunities. And when John and I did the free ways of creating morale, we were already there. It was already a free thing. It cost us nothing. Right? We already brought our lunch to the meetings, because I specifically put it during lunchtime. So I was sure everybody was at least eating that one day. But yeah.
It's the lunch and learn for me has always been my favorite. And whether it's official or it's unofficial, just sitting down and just eating. It brings me back to, a topic that we've talked about before. And, as a new leader, this is some advice I'd offer as well. There's criticism around the food day or buying pizza or bringing donuts. Because I think a lot of disgruntled or unhappy employees will say, well, just give me a pay raise, give me a gift card, give me money. And the best response I've ever seen to that, we had a leader who was present for donuts that Human Resources brought in, just as they were already going to be there for a meeting. They brought donuts for the staff, and the manager, who was the senior leader of this team, said, yeah, the donuts are great, but I would rather just have a gift card. And the HR leader looked at him and she's like, I'd be happy to bring you a 20-cent gift card, because that's what the donut cost. The point wasn't the money. The point was, I wanted to have a snack with you. I wanted to sit around a cup of coffee and drink a donut or eat a donut and talk to you. And, and I think that's the point to those lunch and learns is, it's not about getting a free lunch. It's not about, oh, let me thank you for your efforts with the free lunch. Yes, I am thanking you for your efforts with the pizza, but I want to enjoy the slice with you and talk to you and hear your thoughts and have that bonding moment, because that's what fixes the morale. So I think there's a lot of great nuggets here. And, if I were to summarize this and offer back some advice for the new leader coming in, the bits of pieces that I've taken here is, don't walk in with a big stick or a loud voice. Walk in with your ears open, your eyes open, and hear and see what's really going on before you think you have to come in and make changes. Most environments are operating pretty well, and you're not necessarily walking into a chaotic environment. And if you are an existing leader who's in charge of a team that's potentially not performing well, same advice I would give is maybe talk a little less, step back and hear and see what's happening. And you probably have pretty good people that are doing pretty good things. And maybe it's just time to step back and learn from them a little bit. And I'll toss that out there to the group. Does anybody agree or disagree?
I do agree. I think, look, if you're taking over an organization that is doing completely broken or doing something illegal, immoral, unethical, I got it. You got to change that right away. I got that. but that's not the case in most instances. And again, even if there are small changes that need to be made, or even a big change that needs to be made, get to know why they have been doing it the way they've been doing it, and ask the people who are doing the jobs what's a better way to do it. And as Mike said, throw it out there, let them give you their opinions first. Again, you're the leader. In the end, you got to make the decision. It's your responsibility. And you can pick the good and bad things, pick the good ones and use them, throw the bad ones away. You're under no obligation to use any of their opinions or advice, but you'll find that there are some nuggets out there that will maybe even fix what it is you're trying to fix, because they probably knew how to fix it all along. Nobody ever listened to them.
Just to kind of add on what Oak said and kind of add on what he said previously, getting down where the action's happening. I mean, do it. Right? As a supervisor, I've done it. As a director, I've done it. I've gone out to clients' houses with the worker because the worker was struggling, or I needed to see how we were doing something. Because a lot of times, maybe the worker's not looking at from a director's view or a higher macro type of view, looking at the issue that's facing, but you can. But also, it's building that trust in the leadership. If I'm standing there next to you in a situation you're uncomfortable with, that says I'm there for you, right? For a new leader, it helps you to understand what they're doing as a job. Like, what is the job? What's the role? For an established leader, you're changing the culture to show that you're for the team. For an established leader, something to understand, when you're changing culture, it's not a fast thing. You're not going to show up. You're not going to have one lunch and learn, and everybody's going to be like, oh, that's an amazing leader. Everything's perfect now. It's going to take breaking the current, I don't want to say current standard, but breaking the current view of the leadership, the current culture of the organization. It's going to take multiple times, right? Like they say, what is it? 20 times is a habit. So it takes you 20 times to break a habit. I don't say it's
21 if we're being specific, but yeah.
Oh, it's 21. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's not a specific thing, right? The 22nd time it didn't work. But you know what I mean? It's about that consistency and staying away from John Doolin, who just likes to harass you. But it's about that consistency and putting in that work. Because if you're going to put in the work to change the culture, then you'll see the change. If you're going to just try once or twice and say it didn't work, throw your hands in the air and walk away and blame it on somebody else, you're not being humble. You're not making those efforts. That's the best way to go into. And I've been in organizations where when HR or anybody brings food to a meeting, everybody already assumes something bad is about to happen. They don't want the 20 cents. They're like, who the hell is going to be laid off? What's the new problem coming? If you're in that sort of situation, you better stop bringing food to meetings. Start bringing food to things that aren't meetings. Show up during a lunchtime with donuts and just leave them on a table. And when people start getting their donuts, walk over, hey, how you doing? You got to come to a new approach to change that culture or that view. Because you can have those conversations, but they're having a conversation with you waiting for you to drop the bomb.
Yeah, it is that toxic culture, Mike, and you're right, they do. That to me is the biggest thing that needs to change is show up every once in a while just for the heck of it, just to have a moment. Yeah, Kevin, you started to say something.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
There's two things. One with the food. I think one of the struggles is, great, you brought in pizza, you brought in donuts. I'm gonna go take it back to my office and go back to work. And so there isn't the community that it was built for, because I'm overwhelmed already. Like, you giving me that 20-cent donut isn't the answer. How do I build more of a community? And it's, all right, let's do it foundationally. But then the other element really are, who are your role models? Right now, we see, well, Elon Musk comes in and he blows everything up. That is a very unique case. As a leader, you need to recognize, all right, I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not at that level. I don't have the capacity to transform Twitter in 2 weeks' time and fire 2/3 of the staff. You have to say, okay, I don't want to be an agitator. I want to be a lubricator. How do I learn the system and get people to jump on board rather than just transform everything? And that is very different because everyone wants to be the next Elon Musk. Look what I did. I transformed our department and elevated everything by tenfold. That's just not reality in most situations. And so it's maintaining that self-awareness again of saying, okay, I'm not that guy. Let me learn the system before I transform everything.
And you may not have to transform everything. Again, you may walk into an organization that is completely broken. And if you are, then you got to take some extraordinary steps. But most of the time it's like John said, most organizations are running pretty well. There may need some tweaking. They may need some things changed, but take the time to figure out what those are before you start making those changes. And I think you're absolutely right. And unlike, Kevin, the example you gave where the guy got to build his team, most of us don't have that luxury. When you take over an organization, you're not building your team, you're taking one over, and that's okay. You still have to change the culture maybe and all those things, but the only way you're going to do it, like Mike said, it takes time. You're not doing it overnight. I'm sorry, most of us can't do that.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong point to make if you are in that situation. And I've been there. I think we've all been there where something was broken and we had to come up with a plan of making it better. And I think a well fleshed out plan that has timelines and deliverables and measurables of, how do we even know if we're moving it forward? Those to me are long-term strategy plans. And I don't think it's even possible unless you know the people. I think it still comes back to you have to build the team while you fix the team. So great point, Oak.
Yeah, in the end, leadership, my humble opinion, leadership is very simple. It's about people and trust. Mm-hmm. Those two things. If you know your people and they trust you, you can do some amazing things.
Yeah.
And kind of go with John. I forget when it was, but John said leadership is about just doing the right thing and being a good person, right? Like if you do that,
most things will work out.
Most things will work out. And even if you're wrong, people will be understanding because you got these other 99 areas that you've been doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It kind of applies to life too.
All right, we're here for leadership, John, not life. Okay.
Do the right thing. Be a good human. So I want to just put this out there for the audience. The third Saturday of the month, we will be hosting an open forum that's not recorded, not broadcast in any way. So if you watch the show and you've thought, I'd like to be a part of that, I'd like to present my situation, please join. We are limiting it to the number of seats. The invitations are out there on the YouTube channel. The invitations are on LinkedIn as well. I believe I've shared it on Facebook. It's by invite only, so you do have to go take a seat that's available. You will get a separate invite from me, and we are really looking forward to this. We're bringing some good talent to the table to help, some good experience from different industries. But then the other thing I would just like to throw out there is if you yourself would like to appear on either Casual Conversations, a show that is dedicated to highlighting what you're doing to make the world a better place. All three of these individuals have been on that show with me. And then this show, of course, Leadership Roundtable. If you have ideas that you would just want to throw out there and talk about, there are links on my website for you to go out there and you can communicate directly with me. Let me know what your schedule is. We offer some pretty good flexibility on when we can record. For those folks who fall into the category that I believe Mike and I are in, and that is, working professionals with kids at home. We offer nighttime sessions later in the evening. Sorry to exclude you from that, Kevin. And then, obviously the weekends we record generally Saturday mornings, but we're able to add in a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon from time to time if we can. I want to thank everybody for watching this show. I would like to ask you to go check out Oak's books, go check out Kevin's books. These are books that can help you add value to what you're doing. They are really easy books to read with some really strong messages about leadership, about guiding yourself, about guiding your team. All of the links are below. You've seen the images pop up on the screen throughout this video. Oak, Kevin, Mike, thank you very much. Very grateful for your time again on a Saturday morning. And obviously, the door's wide open anytime you guys would like to come back. Oak, super proud of your public speaking career. We talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but please know that I am standing back and I am clapping loud for you.
Yeah, well, I always appreciate your support, John.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. And I hope that if there's anything we didn't answer in this, reach out to me directly. I am not hard to find.